Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Stephanie Davis, and I'm with the Organizing and Elections Committee for Fifth Square. We are a political action committee devoted to the built environment. So you've got transit and housing and infrastructure covered in there. Our website is fifthsquare.org. That's 5thsq.org. And today we are talking to Vanessa McGrath, who is running for the 175th district for the State House. So I put a link in our Zoom for everyone to go ahead and get their mail-in ballot requested, because that deadline is coming up very quickly. The deadline is May 26th. But we are encouraging everyone to get that early, because those ballots have to be back to the commissioner's office by June 2nd. That's not a postmark date. That's when they physically have to be in the office. So make sure your vote gets counted and that your voice is heard. I know these are difficult times, so I appreciate everyone taking the time today to come and be with us and be more informed voters, because leadership is super important right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa to introduce herself, and then we'll get into questions and answers. And feel free to post a question in the chat. I'll take a look at it and we will ask Vanessa.
All right, well, thank you so much, Steph, and thank you, Fifth Square, for inviting me to chat today. Thank you to everyone who is on the Zoom and everyone who is watching us from Facebook Live. This is my only second Facebook Live experience, so go easy on me. But thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background and why I'm running for office, and I'll start with where I'm running for office. So again, my name is Vanessa McGrath, and I am a Democrat running for state representative in the 175th district here in Pennsylvania. This district runs along the east side of the city, so from Kensington down to Queen Village, Bella Vista area. So the neighborhoods that it covers are parts of Kensington, Fishtown, Northern Liberties, all of Chinatown, Old City, Washington Square, and then parts of Queen Village, Bella Vista, and Society Hill. So along the east side of the city. And a little bit about my background. I was the first person in my family to go to college. After college, I worked in immigration law, where I saw how the law could really be used to help people. I helped individuals and families safely and successfully enter the United States. I saw how the law could really be used to help people, so I decided to go to law school. I went to Temple for law school, and then I clerked on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I've spent most of my career as a litigator working at a woman-owned law firm, and I'm very much a volunteer's volunteer. So I might not have a ton of money, but I do have time. And so the extent to which I can use that to help others, I'm always willing to do so. So I've mostly volunteered on nonprofit boards here in Philadelphia, geared towards education and progressive policy. So one board I've served on is PhilaSoup, which is a local Philadelphia nonprofit, which gives microgrants to Philadelphia school teachers to fund innovative projects. And I also serve on the board of the New Leaders Council, which is a national progressive training organization. We have a chapter here in Philadelphia, and help build a pipeline of future progressive leaders here in our city and across the country. So, you know, it's really been difficult over the last couple of weeks to think about anything, particularly politics. But I think now more than ever, it is really important, it's critical that we have smart leaders in our state government who are gonna fight to protect our healthcare and also the economy here in Pennsylvania. And a lot of that relates to transit and transportation as well. So I know we're gonna be talking about a lot of those issues today. So I will end with my background there.
Thank you. Okay, so our first question is, how has Philadelphia been doing in this moment of crisis, and what have you been working on recently to help individuals affected by the situation? And a sub question to that is, what will be your priorities for getting folks in your district back on their feet after this pandemic passes? And like, what can state government be doing better to that end?
Just taking a note. That's a three-parter. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's, I mean, the pandemic is pretty complicated, so.
That is true. Okay, so in terms of how we have been doing as a city in responding to this crisis, I have to commend Philadelphians for staying home and really coming together even though we are physically apart. So it, personally, being outside, going on a run or a walk and seeing the empty streets was really hard at first. Honestly, it made me very sad. But then when I thought about it, that we all are doing this for a very loving reason, to take care of our neighbors, that I found to be very moving. So in terms of our spirit, I'm really proud of Philadelphians for staying home and helping to flatten the curve. However, I do think there is a lot more that we could be doing to combat this pandemic and ensure that more lives are saved and less people get ill. We need to be doing more testing. So while individually we've all been, doing a really good job at staying home and doing our part not to spread the virus, we don't have the testing to really ensure that that is not going to that we're going to be able to keep people from getting sick once we do lift some of the restrictions. So I am disappointed that we have been in lockdown now for almost 2 months, and there really hasn't been an increase in availability of the testing here in our city. And I'm concerned that once we do get numbers that indicate that the curve has flattened enough and lowered enough that it's safe to let people out in smaller groups or go to restaurants or retail facilities, I am concerned that without testing and understanding contact tracing, that we're only going to rebound and that more people will unnecessarily fall ill and die, quite frankly. So I really wish we could improve the testing. And I think there's also some things that we could be doing as the restrictions are lifted, such as opening up more streets so that people are able to be outside and socially distance from one another. So that is something that we could be doing more of all around the city. And that would give folks a way to ensure that they're staying apart from one another and being able to enjoy more of our city. And that would also include not just for pedestrian traffic, but also for restaurants to be able to expand outside so that people can get back a little bit more into their routine and frequent our local businesses and restaurants, but feel safe doing so. In terms of what we can be doing to get people back on their feet, one of the concerns that I hear about most in talking to folks is that there's really big issues with unemployment. And I think it would be unrealistic to think that everything's just gonna go back to normal as soon as we move into yellow or green. So I think we need to be doing more on a state level to ensure that we're processing claims, that we have these agencies staffed enough to handle the influx of people that are reaching out and contacting them. I hear some people can't get through or hold of anyone, and even some state legislators I've spoken to say that it takes them 10 days even to get a response from the unemployment office. So if those folks can't get through, I don't know who can get through. So we really need to make sure that we are strengthening the safety net here across our state, not just in terms of unemployment, but in all sorts of different areas of benefits, because this is really going to be a longer term problem, and it's not going to go away once perhaps the restrictions are lifted come June or July. I think I hit all three parts.
Thanks for that. So our third question, if elected into the State House, which committees will be your priority in getting into? And another question that popped up in the chat, this question might be good for that, is just a question about how you differentiate yourself from the other candidates that are running in your district. I'm not sure if you would try to be on the same committees as the incumbent or as some of your opponents, but that was asked by Matt in the chat.
All right, thank you, Steph and Matt, for those questions. So in terms of committees that I would be most interested in serving on, I will say, just being the first person in my family to go to college and having gone to a public school, education is really important to me. So being on the education committee would be a priority. And I will acknowledge that our current state representative does serve on the education committee. But I think we really need someone who is going to be a champion and an advocate for education, because I don't think it's just enough to get a position on the committee. I think we need to be doing more to ensure that our schools are safe and fairly funded. And I think particularly with the current circumstances that we're living through, we also need folks who are able to think creatively and how and what school looks like in this new reality that we're living in. So we need to ensure our legislators are thinking about how do we keep the schools clean, how do we keep the children safe, not just now from asbestos and other toxicity that was already in the schools, but also from this virus that's been spreading. And we need to keep the teachers and administrators and all of the workers that are going in and out of schools on a daily basis safe. So the education committee would be a top priority. And then also transportation, and urban affairs, which I think are issues that we will cover very much in detail through the rest of this hour. So I will just note those. And I think we'll talk pretty in depth in terms of policies that I'd be interested in terms of those committees. In terms of how I differentiate myself from the other folks who are running, we do have a few people who have thrown their hat in the ring for this race. So I, would say that I am the only candidate who is a political outsider. I have not spent my career working in professional politics. So I come at this with a very different lens, and I am someone who will be accountable only to the people of this district and to the people in Pennsylvania. My campaign is being funded by, I think we're nearing at least 450 to 500 individual donors in a state rep race in a primary with 4 people running. So we've gotten a lot of support from people who believe that we really need change in our state government, and the status quo has not served us, that we need candidates who are going to run against the Philadelphia political machine and aren't afraid to do so and have the courage to do so, and are going to continue to fight and advocate for us once they get to Harrisburg. So that's one way that I'm different. I would also just note, in terms of substantive policy, we're not all the same, even though we're all Democrats running. Our current state representative voted in favor of E-Verify legislation that, as someone who has worked in immigration law, I would not vote in favor of, and I do not believe that that vote reflects the values of this district. And she's also taken some other votes that I would view as not very progressive. So I think particularly in this district, it's very progressive, and we need someone who reflects those values in our state house.
Great, thank you. And just to let everyone on the Zoom call know, I did post a link to Vanessa's answers to Fifth Square's original questionnaire. In a crowded field, Vanessa is the one that earned our endorsement this round. So we thank her very much for coming back to us for this Zoom call. There was a previous meeting where she did speak and managed to snag that endorsement from us. So it's a pretty competitive race too. So make sure you get those mail-in ballots going.
Yeah. Could I make one little comment?
Of course, go for it.
I do have a correction from for everyone who was at that meeting where I spoke. I do have to make an update on the record. And I appreciate that you all endorsed me, even though I admitted at that meeting that I do not own a bike. But I have an update. I may be getting one for my birthday, so it's very exciting. So this is my big quarantine update. So I just want to make sure we update the record on that big life event that's happening here.
That's great to hear. I mean, in this time, there's some gaps in transportation right now, so I think you're gonna need it. And that to speak on transportation for a minute, with the dire financial situation facing SEPTA, from plummeting ridership due to COVID, lack of fare collection on buses and trolleys until at least the 17th, and the future prospect of losing the $178 million from the Turnpike toll revenue. What are your solutions for ensuring that SEPTA will survive this crisis? And A second part to that is, would congestion pricing and TNC surcharges be on the table for you? And just to clarify for listeners, TNC is Transportation Network Company, and that means basically your Lyft and Uber, the ride shares, basically.
That's a great question, and something that I have spent a lot of time thinking about, just seeing the lack of use throughout the city. So in terms of SEPTA, we do need to make sure that we are fighting to keep it funded, and there are a couple of things that we could do to ensure that. So one is seeking stimulus money just to keep it SEPTA running. I am in favor of congestion, and this is in my Fifth Square questionnaire, so if you're interested in more comprehensive answers, but I am in favor of congestion charges and also charges in regards to TNC as well. We do need to think about issues, so TNC, like things like Uber and Lyft, thinking about, basically having an unlimited amount of cars available out on our streets, driving around, and implementing charges, I think, accordingly are fair, and that those are two sources that we can have in order to supplement some of that funding to ensure that we do have good public transportation widely available here in Philadelphia and also across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And another thing is that we need to be fighting to ensure, fighting for Act 44 funding to ensure that that is extended and renewed in some fashion to protect SEPTA, to keep it going. Because this is, another thing that I've been thinking about is how do we keep public transportation safe as well? Because we do want to encourage folks to take advantage of it. And your thought or picture of a subway car is that, or a bus, is that they are filled with people taking advantage of our great public transportation. So we also need to be thinking about ways to make sure that people feel safe when we are able to resume more of our social activities and the restrictions are lifted. So I've just been thinking about ways in which we can ensure that SEPTA, like the buses and the trains, are cleaned more regularly so that people do feel comfortable riding on them. And that's also, I think, a great way to create new jobs to ensure that that everything is clean and multiple times a day. So those are some of the ideas that I've been thinking about.
Great, thank you. And so keeping in the SEPTA questions, SEPTA is holding its fair hearings in a few weeks, and Fifth Square has proposed a fair plan for SEPTA that we believe is attainable, responsible, and would benefit low-income riders. It includes eliminating the transfer penalty, fare capping, free rides for children, and including Zone 1 regional rail free with a trans pass. Do you support our fair plan, and do you have long-term goal? What would your long-term goals be in regards to the fare structure for SEPTA?
I am very excited by Fifth Square's plan. I think it is great. I am definitely in favor of the elimination of the transfer fee. I think it is a way to make sure that SEPTA is more accessible and help to eliminate some of the inequities in the system. As is with the fare capping, I think that is an issue that maybe not enough people are aware of, and that's the idea that if you're buying a trans pass, it's a pretty big upfront cost. So that might not be something affordable to everyone. So making sure that we are capping fees and making it more fair and equitable, definitely in favor of that. And I'm missing one thing. What's I going to say? Yeah, I think generally it just eliminates a lot of the inequities in the way that fares are currently structured here on SEPTA, and definitely in favor of it. In terms of, what was the other question? The long-term goals?
Yes, long-term goals for fare restructuring.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we need to continue to encourage thinking about the ways. I think that the framing in which Fisware has looked at how fares are structured is the correct direction that we need to take it for long-term planning, which is making sure that we're thinking about these issues in terms of leveling the access. And I also think there is a lot of focus on efficiency as well, which has creating efficiencies in the system are going to make it more affordable, and also I think help with the environmental impact as well. So I think in terms of accessibility, quality, and then also efficiency are how we need to structure our long-term plans in terms of fare charges and fee structures.
Great, thank you. So the next one is more about public space. Many people are saying that the pandemic and its calls for social distancing are just going to change the face of how we congregate and use city space. Some are using this moment to rally against density and the construction of urban housing. Do you believe there is a path forward in terms of encouraging more housing construction?
Yeah, I can definitely see how, so I can definitely see how people would be concerned. And let me know, sorry if I'm having a little internet issue here. If I cut out, I don't know, just wave if you can't hear me. The fun part of this. Keep getting alerts. Okay, so I can definitely understand why folks would be concerned about density and having people in close proximity. There's an obvious thought there that perhaps this is something that we should shy away from, but I don't think that necessarily moving away from a city way of living is the solution to ensure that we stop pandemics like this. We have been able to see in our city that staying home, we are able to, flatten the curve and start to lower the curve. So I don't think we need to shy away from density housing. I think if anything, it is something that we need more of, and that this pandemic has really highlighted a lot of issues that already existed. It's really put a spotlight on them. So in terms of wages, for example, and all of these issues are very related, we have seen that I think at an even higher degree, how much we need to be ensuring that people are paid a fair minimum wage. And I am supportive of at least $15 an hour, but I think that's something that needs to increase, and it needs to increase as time goes on. It's not something we should just be okay with setting at 15. I think, and then that relates also to, in terms of housing, right now in our city, if you make a minimum wage and work 40 hours a week, you can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment here in Philadelphia. So we need to continue to be investing in multifamily units and affordable housing. We should have a wage that makes it so we don't have to call it affordable housing, that people are able just to afford housing. So I think this pandemic has really highlighted those issues that existed before, and we need strong leaders in our state government who are cared about these issues and are going to care about them and continue to care about them and fight to make sure that people are paid a fair minimum wage. And then also we do have housing that people can afford to live in. So I don't, I don't think we need to move away from greater housing density. I think we need to continue to invest in it.
Great.
Hopefully you
got it. What's that?
I said, hopefully you all could hear me. It wasn't cutting out. My computer is like sending me a lot of messages.
I keep getting the internet unstable message. Yeah. But you got a few snaps and claps from the crowd there on that one.
All right.
And this is our final formal question, but I do want to push again, if anyone on the call does have any questions, please post them and I'll be sure to shout them out because we do have a little bit of time here. But I do want to get to this last one. As we emerge from this pandemic, people will rightfully be wary of crowding back into trains and buses, which you touched on earlier. And we do want to ensure that that doesn't result in enormous increases in car use and also TNC use, which again is that Uber and Lyft dynamic. So what do you think the city or state agencies like PennDOT should do to keep people moving on our streets if we're expecting a ridership drop on transit?
That's a great question, and something I do think spend a lot of time thinking about. I think one thing that we can do is continue to expand protected bike lanes here in our city. They save lives, and so we need to continue expanding that. I think also, to the extent we're able to have more streets open, just completely closed down to anything but pedestrian and bike traffic, I think that's one way to encourage folks from, you know, Uber and Lyft and non-public transport options. I think that we can also, you know, get bikes like I am, if you're able to. But I think just opening up and making sure that we're providing other options for people that are non-car options. Another thing that comes to mind is we could also, I think, and this is, I'm sure there's a few people that will be a fan of this idea as well, is opening some streets to be bus only. That's something I am definitely very supportive of. It increases efficiency of the system, so it makes our public transportation more reliable, and also helps with the environmental impact as well. So I think that's another thing that we should definitely consider. So those are some of the ideas that I've been thinking about.
Great. And I don't have any immediate questions. People are welcome to follow up through Fifth Square. We're fifthsquare.com if you want to email us. Vanessa has made herself extremely accessible, and we thank her so much for coming today. This is a recorded video.
Could I sneak in maybe some things about voting?
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to get your final thoughts, and I also just want to let people know that they can share out this questionnaire through the Facebook Live link, because it'll be there this whole time. But I also want to hear from you one more time, Vanessa, with any final thoughts or anything that you need to share with the group.
Always willing to talk. One thing I would just mention is some of the things that we've been doing as a campaign to adjust to this pandemic. So we realized pretty early that it was likely that Philadelphia would put under a stay-at-home order. So one thing we did is increase the amount of information about our policies on our website. So if you are interested on where I stand on anything other than kind of the transportation, urban affairs issues we've been talking about today, please feel free to visit my website, VanessaMcGrath.com. And we also added a tab about campaigning from home, which includes information on COVID-19 related resources. So if you're interested, we've tried to compile a pretty comprehensive list on places where you can, support and make contributions to, or just general information. I think it's really important to provide good information because there's a lot of misinformation being circulated out there. We also have been holding events, but we did a virtual town hall where we had a public health expert, a voting rights expert. We had someone speak about mental health and also other community resources. So again, I think it's just really important to get good information out there. And as a campaign, we've been making a ton of phone calls. And so I think our last count was, we're getting we were over almost 7,000 phone calls that we've made to folks here in the district. And so we've been talking to people to make sure that they were doing okay. And if there was a way for us to help them and get them the resources or information that they needed. A lot of people are feeling lonely and isolated. So it's been nice to just keep them company and provide them with someone to talk to and, maybe some entertainment and some jokes. I did have a man tell me jokes for about 20 minutes. It was very sweet. We have also been hearing a lot of people frustrations with the unemployment system has been one of the biggest concerns I've been hearing about in the last couple of weeks. And also just a lot of, older folks who are unable to get groceries. So making sure that they are taken care of. So that's a public service that we've been doing. And it's been great to hear from people and make sure that we're able to take care of them the best that we can. And also a lot of great stories about neighbors taking care of their neighbors. I was talking to these people who live in a building and they were sending food on the elevator contactless to their neighbor, which I thought was very cute. And, so we've been doing different types of virtual events. We also celebrated and honored the original election date, which was April 28th, with an election day dress rehearsal. So we really wanted to encourage people to request their mail-in ballots. And we also had a variety of different performers, singers, comedians, and dancers, just to bring a little joy to people's evening and remind them about the importance of voting. So other than unemployment, I would say the other biggest issue I hear about is people are very concerned about voting and the election. So as Steph said at the beginning, really important to request your mail-in ballot. It's a great way to keep yourself safe and also to keep your neighbors safe as well. I hear one of the drawbacks people will say is, well, my polling place is downstairs. It's farther than getting to my mailbox. But one thing that we had to think about is that a lot of the polling places may not be open. So your normal poll, and I'm not trying to scare you away from your polling place, but a lot of them just might not be open. We don't know right now which ones will be. So while your current polling place might be close by, it might not be open on this election day. So really encouraging people to vote by mail. You can go to votespa.com and request your app. You can apply online, and then it will be sent to you, and then you just send it back. And as Steph said, really important to return it by June 2nd. It has to be received by June 2nd at 8 p.m. So once you get it, I'd fill it out and return it in the mail, and you will have voted. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about voting, but that is one of the big issues. As far as we know, the mail-in ballots are going out, it seems, in batches. Like every couple of days, they seem to be being sent out. So if you haven't received yours, you can check on the city commissioner's website, I think now, and track your ballot. And it should be coming in the coming days if you haven't received it. And the deadline is May 26th to apply for that mail-in ballot, and May 18th to register.
Yes, so make sure you check your voter registration and that it's at your current address. I do want to add, as Vanessa mentioned, most polling places will change, or it will likely not be your normal polling place. The information that I got, and it's fluid, it does change, but they are committed to not having it at senior centers or firehouses. Like any first responder areas are not going to be used, just because they don't want to stress the elderly and they don't want to stress our emergency services. So I know my polling place is normally at a senior center, so I know that will not be the polling location. So to protect your neighbors and your poll workers, please vote by mail. That link is in the chat, and our election center does have that information as well. Fifth Square is entirely run by volunteers, so if you're feeling generous, please consider becoming a sustaining member. It's how we end up supporting these great candidates that we want for better leadership on issues facing Philadelphia. Unless there is anything else that Vanessa, you want to talk about, I'll give people back their time, but I'll certainly let you have the last word of the day here.
Yeah, I think that's everything. I just want to thank all of you for coming this afternoon to our virtual event. I thank you, Fifth Square, for having me, and thank you so much for the great work you all are doing. It is very impressive. I am very grateful that we have such an awesome organization here in Philadelphia doing this great work. So, and I'm especially grateful to have you all, your endorsement. It really does mean a lot, and to have that recognition of our policies. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your support, and thank you all for everything that you're doing.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Stay safe. Mask up. Wear a mask when you go out. Try to stay in.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm gonna post one last link on the chat that I just got for Vanessa's campaign. So there you go.
Yeah, and thank you all the friends I see on this Zoom. I miss you all so much. Can't wait to see you soon.
Good to see everyone virtually. All right, take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.